everybody, how are you today? I'm Zayan and I'm back with another video called Evolution of Dinosaurs and Myths Debunked. I know it's probably been a while and you've been waiting for me, so I planned on posting another video to entertain you again, and it's going to be about dinosaurs like I used to make. We're going to talk about the evolution of dinosaurs. And also, near the end of the video, we'll also be talking about myths about dinosaurs, like if they had feathers or not, and if they evolved into reptiles like crocodiles or snakes. So make sure that you stick around to the end and don't forget to like and subscribe. So, as most of you probably know, dinosaurs weren't the first living things to live on this earth. As you know, life started in water, as small creatures called bacteria, and they were microscopic, too small for the naked eye to see. Soon, they evolved into larger creatures, which were more developed, called invertebrates, and also plants. Then, after a few thousand years, the first fish appeared. The first fish were jawless, and they had permanently open mouths, so they could not close them. They were called placoderms. And there were also fish called acanthodians, which had jaws. Their name originates from a Greek word meaning thorn or spike, probably referring to the shape of their teeth. But those kind of creatures were not the point of this video, so let's get to it. The dinosaurs. Dinosaurs appeared thousands of years later during the Triassic period. The dinosaurs during the Triassic period were Plateosaurus, Herrerasaurus, and Eoraptor. Those were some of the very notable examples. They were early dinosaurs. All of them lived in South America. Herrerasaurus was a theropod dinosaur and had a bipedal structure. It used to hunt smaller creatures like Eoraptor, and also in groups could possibly take down the Plateosaurus. Herrerasaurus was one of the first dinosaurs to be discovered in the 19th century by a farmer named Herrera. That gave it its name. During the 19th century, dinosaurs in pop culture look way different than nowadays. The depictions nowadays are presumably more accurate to the real dinosaur. Moving on to Eoraptor. Eoraptor was one of the smallest dinosaurs ever. It was mostly nocturnal. It hunted for creatures like smaller dinosaurs and mammals, as mammals did live during the Triassic period but were very small and also nocturnal, because if they lived in the day, they would be eaten by creatures like reptiles and dinosaurs. During that time, dinosaurs were not the dominant species because it was mostly ruled by lizards and amphibians. Eoraptor had big eyes to see in the dark and was specialized for doing that. It used to be hunted by large dinosaurs and was a very speedy dinosaur. It was very agile. Moving on to the first, presumably one of the first sauropods. Plateosaurus was the first sauropod dinosaur. It was quite large, and the name Plateosaurus meant flat lizard, although there was nothing about it that was quite flat. It was a very large creature and could kill theropods that wanted to attack it with its long tail and crushing them with its feet. The Plateosaurus could also probably stand up on its hind legs to reach for leaves of trees. They had teeth shaped like almost like spoons. And moving on to the smallest dinosaur, Mosasaurus. Mosasaurus was one of the smallest dinosaurs and was surprisingly a sauropod, which was actually one of the largest types of dinosaurs by at the time. It could possibly fit in your hand, and we actually don't really know of the size of it exactly that well, as we have mostly seen juveniles and babies. The babies could grow about as big as your hand. During the time, dinosaurs were not so developed and competed with the amphibians and reptiles. One of the creatures they had to look out for was the large reptile, Prostosuchus. It was mostly quadrupedal but could also stand up on its hind legs. It looked relatively similar to a crocodilian and had quite long legs. Okay, and moving on to the next dinosaur. This dinosaur was not that well known as all the others I was going to be talking about. It's called Demonosaurus. Demonosaurus was a small dinosaur and was probably a theropod dinosaur. There hasn't been much research done on this dinosaur, so we don't really know. The only known specimen of the Demonosaurus was found near a group of coelophysis. The reason why they were all together, all of these specimens, was probably due to a flash flood. The flash flood drove them into a small pond and they drowned there. Moving on to the next dinosaur, Rheogosaurus. Rheogosaurus was the only known rheogosaurid dinosaur which lived in South America. It was a quite large type of dinosaur and weighed about 1,800 pounds, and that was actually very heavy, as much as a small car. This dinosaur was probably closely related to the Melanorosaurus, which lived in the late Triassic period to the early Jurassic period. But judging by the fact that the neck bones of the Rheogosaurus were longer than Melanorosaurus, it was probably unique. Moving on to the Jurassic period. The Jurassic period was the rise of the dinosaurs and the fall of the reptiles and amphibians. The dinosaurs that were there during the time were much more developed, and mostly the famous ones lived there. For example, Stegosaurus and Brachiosaurus were some of the creatures that lived there. Stegosaurus was a type of stegosaurid dinosaur and it lived in the Jurassic period. It was about as big as the rhinoceros and could also grow to heavier sizes. It was a quite unique dinosaur because it had large plates on its back. But obviously you don't eat your food off of them, do you? And in its tail, it had some spikes which it could swing around at its attackers. And probably had one of the smallest brains to body size of any animal, about as big as a peanut. During the 19th century, there was a scientific belief that some scientists believed in, which was that Stegosaurus had another brain near its tail, so it could control it more easily to attack other creatures. This is proven to be false today. Moving on to Brachiosaurus. I'm pretty sure all of you have heard of Brachiosaurus, the extremely long-necked giant sauropod, which was featured in many movies in pop culture such as Jurassic World and Park series. The Brachiosaurus was a very tall dinosaur. Its tail wasn't as long as most sauropods and was quite short. It was preyed on by groups of Ceratosaurus or Allosaurus, but it wasn't very likely that they would hunt it down successfully, as it usually lived in groups like elephants and had a massive weight advantage, although there are strength in numbers. And with that being said, moving on to Ceratosaurus. Ceratosaurus was a quite large predatory dinosaur, and in groups could prey on creatures like Stegosaurus and Brachiosaurus. It lived in places like North America, Europe, and Africa. It had a horn on top of its nose, which it possibly could have used to stab attackers. During the olden days of dinosaurs in pop culture, Ceratosaurus versus Stegosaurus was a quite memorable dinosaur fight, and children still think of it today. Although most of the time people thought that Ceratosaurus would win. And that's gonna do it for today's video, guys, and I hope you really enjoyed it. And stay tuned for part 2, which is going to come out about a week later during the weekend. And goodbye. Please smash that like button and hit the subscribe, and make sure that you hit the notification button to stay tuned for all of my new videos. You don't want to miss them and be late to the party, do you? So please click the notification button, and I will be seeing you all in the next video. Peace!